The sun had not broken through the smoke in 47 days. Danny Cole stood at the edge of the supply depot, his eyes fixed on the massive wall that surrounded Fort Edgemont. The Kethari had built it in less than a week. 40 tons of alien alloy, black as night, cold as death. It stretched 300 feet high and wrapped around the entire colony like a noose. Behind that wall, the enemy waited. They did not need to attack. They only needed to wait for everyone inside to starve. Danny was 23 years old. He had enlisted in the Allied forces 3 months ago. Back when he thought war meant something noble, now he knew better. War meant watching food supplies shrink every day. War meant listening to alien soldiers argue about which species would die first. War meant standing in line for water rations while the ground shook from distant explosions. He was a supply runner, nothing special. He moved crates from one place to another. He counted ammunition boxes and marked them on his tablet. He did his job and kept his head down and tried not to think about the fact that he would probably die on this planet, far from home, far from the quiet fields of Montana where he had spent his whole life before this. The other species looked at him with something between pity and confusion. The Torvani were 8 feet tall, with armor plating that grew from their own skin. The Velkeen had 4 arms, and could see in complete darkness. The Norathi could survive in the vacuum of space for hours without protection. And then there was Danny. Soft skin. No claws. No natural weapons. Just a regular human being, the kind that alien children learned about in school as an example of how a species could survive despite having no obvious advantages. Commander Yethal walked past the depot, his heavy footsteps shaking the ground. He was Torvani, and he had led this defense for the entire siege. His chitinous plates were scarred from a dozen battles. His mandibles clicked when he was thinking, and they clicked now as he looked at Danny. "Supply runner," Yethal said. His voice was deep, like stones grinding together. "Status report. 6 days of food left, Commander," Danny said. "Maybe 8 if we cut rations again. Water is holding for now." Yethal's mandibles clicked faster. 6 days, he repeated. "The gate still holds. Our weapons cannot breach it. Their weapons do not need to fire. They simply wait." He looked at Danny for a long moment, then turned away. "Your species should not have come here. This is not your war." Danny said nothing. He had heard it before. Humans were soft. Humans were weak. Humans belonged in offices and laboratories, not on battlefields. He had heard it so many times that he had started to believe it himself. Sergeant Lisa Vance found him an hour later, sitting alone near the northern wall. She was 40 years old, with gray in her hair and scars across her face that she never talked about. She had been fighting alongside alien soldiers for 15 years. She was one of the few humans that the other species actually respected, though Danny did not know why. "You look like hell," Lisa said, sitting down beside him. "We're all going to die here," Danny replied. "So, I figured I'd get a head start on looking the part." Lisa laughed. It was a rough sound. Like sandpaper on wood. "You're not wrong about the dying part. Council meets in an hour. Word is they're going to vote on surrender." Danny looked at her. "Surrender? The Kethari don't take prisoners. They do now. New orders from their high command. They want information about our supply lines, our fleet positions. They'll keep us alive long enough to get what they want." Lisa paused. "After that, who knows?" The council chamber was a converted warehouse near the center of the fort. Danny had no reason to be there, but Lisa brought him anyway. She said she wanted him to see how decisions were made. He thought she just wanted someone to sit with who wouldn't talk too much. The room was filled with officers from every allied species. Torvani, Velkeen, Norathi, and a handful of others that Danny did not recognize. There were only 4 humans in the room, including Lisa and Danny. They stood at the back, near the door, like guests at someone else's funeral. Commander Yethal stood at the front, his massive form casting a shadow across the holographic maps that flickered on the central table. "Our situation is clear," he said. "The siege gate cannot be breached. Our air support was destroyed in the first week. No reinforcements will arrive in time. We have 6 days of food remaining. A Velkeen officer spoke up, her forearms crossed over her chest. What about the tunnels? We could dig beneath the wall. The Kethari sensors extend 50 meters underground, Yethal replied. We tried. They collapsed the tunnel and killed 18 soldiers. Then we fight, a young Norathi said. We charge the gate. We die with honor. Honor does not feed the civilians hiding in the bunkers, Yethal said quietly. There are 12,000 non-combatants in this fort. Children. Elderly. Sick. I will not spend their lives on a gesture. The room fell silent. Danny felt Lisa's hand on his shoulder. Squeezing gently, Yethal continued. I have received communication from the Kethari commander. They are willing to accept our surrender. They will take military personnel as prisoners and allow civilians to evacuate to neutral territory. He paused. I do not trust them, but I do not see another option. We vote at dawn. Danny walked out of the council chamber and into the cold night air. The smoke had cleared enough to show a few stars, tiny points of light in an endless black sky. Somewhere out there, Earth was spinning along in its orbit, completely unaware that a farm kid from Montana was standing on the edge of defeat. He found himself walking toward the siege gate. He did not know why. His feet just carried him there. Step by step, until he was standing close enough to touch the black metal. It was cold, so cold that he could feel it through his gloves. Up close, he could see the craftsmanship. Every seam was perfect. Every weld was flawless. The Kethari had built this thing to last forever. And somewhere, deep in his chest, something that had been sleeping for a very long time began to wake up. Danny did not sleep that night. He lay on his cot in the barracks, staring at the ceiling, listening to the breathing of soldiers around him. Some of them snored. Some of them talked in their sleep, calling out names in languages Danny did not understand. They were all afraid. Every single one of them, even the Torvani, with their armored skin and their centuries of warrior tradition, even they were afraid of what tomorrow would bring. He closed his eyes and let his mind drift backward, across the stars, across the years, back to a place that felt like another lifetime. The Cole family farm sat on 2,000 acres of Montana rangeland. It was hard country. Cold winters and hot summers and wind that never stopped blowing. Danny's father had died when Danny was 12, kicked in the chest by a horse that got spooked during a thunderstorm. After that, it was just Danny and his mother and his grandfather, working the land from before sunrise until long after dark. His grandfather was a man named Henry Cole. He was 73 years old and built like a piece of old leather stretched over iron. He had hands that could crush walnuts and a back that never bent, no matter how heavy the load. He taught Danny everything. How to dig fence posts in frozen ground. How to haul hay bales when the tractor broke down. How to pull a calf from a struggling cow in the middle of the night with nothing but your hands and your will. Danny remembered one summer when he was 16. The irrigation pump had failed, and there was no money to fix it. So he and his grandfather had dug a new channel by hand, half a mile long, through rocky soil that fought them every inch of the way. It took 3 weeks. Danny's hands bled. His back screamed. His muscles burned with a fire that never seemed to go out. An Earthborn don't quit, his grandfather had said, driving his shovel into the dirt. We just ain't built that way. Danny had not understood what that meant at the time. He thought it was just something old men said to make young men work harder. But now, lying in the dark on a planet 40 light-years from home, he was starting to understand. Earth was different. He had learned that in basic training, when the alien instructors had looked at his medical records with something like disbelief. Earth's gravity was 1 g. That number had meant nothing to Danny before he left home, but to the rest of the galaxy, it meant everything. Most species evolved on worlds with much weaker gravity. The Torvani homeworld was 6 g. The Velkeen came from a moon with only 4 g. Their bodies were adapted to lighter conditions, where less strength was needed to move, to lift, to survive. They had developed other advantages instead. Armor, extra limbs, enhanced senses. Humans had none of that. What humans had was a planet that crushed them from the moment they were born. Every step, every breath, every heartbeat was a fight against a force that never let up. And over millions of years, that fight had shaped them into something the galaxy did not fully understand. The medical files called it anomalous physical development. Human bone density was off the charts compared to other species. Human muscle fibers were designed for sustained heavy labor. Human adrenaline response could temporarily boost strength and speed to levels that should not have been possible. The alien scientists did not know what to make of it. They classified the data as under review and moved on to other things. Danny sat up in his cot. The barracks were quiet now. Most of the soldiers had finally fallen asleep. Exhausted by fear and hunger, and the endless waiting, he pulled on his boots and slipped out the door. Into the cold night air, the siege gate drew him like a magnet. He walked through empty streets, past shuttered buildings and abandoned checkpoints, until he was standing in front of it again. The black metal gleamed in the starlight. It was beautiful, in a terrible way. A perfect monument to the enemy's power. Danny reached out and touched it. The cold bit into his fingers. He pressed his palm flat against the surface and pushed. Just a little. Just to feel the weight of the thing. It did not move. Of course it did not move. It was designed to resist artillery fire and plasma cannons. It was designed to stand forever. But Danny kept his hand there. He thought about his grandfather's hands. He thought about the irrigation channel. He thought about 18-hour days and frozen ground, and the endless, crushing weight of Earth's gravity pressing down on him for every single moment of his life. He had never thought of himself as strong. On Earth, he was average. Maybe even a little below average. There were bigger men back home. Men who could outwork him and outlift him without breaking a sweat. Danny had always been the quiet one, the small one, the one who got the job done without anyone noticing. But he was not on Earth anymore. And for the first time in his life, he wondered what that might mean. Planning something stupid? The voice came from behind him. Danny turned to see Lisa Vance, standing a few feet away, her breath misting in the cold air. She was not wearing her armor. She looked older without it, more tired, more human. Just thinking, Danny said. Dangerous habit. Lisa walked up to stand beside him, looking at the gate. That thing weighs 40 tons. Keth-Ari alloy. Strongest material they've got. Our best plasma cutter couldn't scratch it. I know. So what are you thinking about? Danny did not answer for a long moment. He kept his hand on the gate, feeling the cold seep into his bones. Finally, he said, "Back home. My grandfather used to say that you don't know what you can do until you have to do it. He said that people are like springs. You can push them down, but eventually they push back. And the harder you push them down, the harder they push back." Lisa studied him with eyes that had seen too much death. "And what happens when the spring breaks?" "I don't know," Danny said. "But I think tomorrow, we're going to find out." He pulled his hand away from the gate and walked back toward the barracks. Lisa watched him go, a strange expression on her face. She had fought alongside humans for 15 years. She had seen them do things that amazed her, and things that horrified her, but she had never seen that look in anyone's eyes before. It was not hope. It was not despair. It was something older than both. Something that came from deep inside. From a place that most people never reached. Lisa looked at the gate one more time, then followed Danny into the darkness. Dawn came gray and cold. Like every other dawn since the siege began. The smoke had settled low over the fort, mixing with morning fog to create a haze that made everything look like a dream. Or maybe a nightmare. The surrender party gathered near the main gate. Commander Yethal stood at the front, his ceremonial blade hanging at his side. He would offer it to the Keth-Ari commander as a symbol of defeat. Behind him stood a dozen officers from various species, all of them silent, all of them carrying the weight of failure on their shoulders. The vote had passed 3 hours ago. It was over. Danny watched from the edge of the crowd. He had not slept at all. His eyes burned, and his legs ached, but there was something else burning inside him now. Something that would not let him rest. Lisa appeared beside him. "They're about to open the small gate," she said quietly. "Once they walk through, it's done. The Kethari will take control of the fort within the hour." "No," Danny said. Lisa looked at him. "What do you mean, no?" But Danny was already walking. He pushed through the crowd of soldiers, past Velkeen officers and Torvani guards, past everyone who had already given up. His boots made no sound on the packed earth. His heart was beating so loud that he was sure everyone could hear it. Commander Yethal saw him first. The massive Torvani commander turned, his mandibles clicking in confusion. "Supply runner? What are you doing here?" "Return to your station." Danny did not stop. He walked past the commander, past the surrender party, past all of them, until he was standing directly in front of the siege gate. The black metal rose above him like a cliff, cold and perfect and impossible. "Human." Yethal's voice thundered across the plaza. "I gave you an order. Stand down. This is not your place." Danny turned to face the crowd. He saw their faces. Torvani with their armored plates, Velkeen with their forearms crossed in confusion, Norathi with their strange, alien eyes, and scattered among them, a handful of humans who looked just as lost as everyone else. "My grandfather told me something once," Danny said. His voice was not loud, but somehow it carried across the entire plaza. "He said that you don't know what you can do until you have to do it." He turned back to the gate. "I think it's time to find out." He placed both hands on the black metal. The cold cut through his gloves immediately, burning his skin with frost. He spread his fingers wide and pressed his palms flat against the surface. He took a deep breath, and then he pushed. Nothing happened at first. The gate was 40 tons of Kethari alloy, designed to resist forces that Danny could not even imagine. It was not supposed to move. It was not supposed to bend. It was not supposed to break. But Danny kept pushing. He thought about his father, dying alone in a barn, while his family rushed to reach him too late. He thought about his mother, working herself to exhaustion every single day just to keep the farm alive. He thought about his grandfather, teaching him that surrender was not in their blood. He thought about every hard day, every heavy load, every moment when giving up would have been easier than going on. Something began to change inside him. His muscles burned. His bones ached. His vision narrowed until all he could see was the black metal in front of him. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice was screaming that this was impossible, that he was going to kill himself, that he should stop right now. He did not stop. The blood vessels in his arms began to burst. Red lines appeared under his skin, spreading like cracks in old leather. His fingers dug into the metal, and incredibly, impossibly, the metal began to bend. Tiny dents appeared where his fingertips pressed. The surface that plasma cutters could not scratch was giving way to human hands. The crowd behind him had gone completely silent. Yethal's mandibles stopped clicking. Every eye was fixed on the impossible thing happening in front of them. Danny roared. It was not a human sound. It was something older, something primal, something that came from the deepest part of him. The sound echoed off the walls of the fort and rolled out across the battlefield like thunder. The gate cracked. A line appeared in the center of the metal, spreading upward like lightning frozen in time. Danny grabbed the edge of the crack with both hands. The metal cut into his palms. Blood ran down his arms. He did not feel it. He did not feel anything except the weight of the gate and the fire burning in every cell of his body. He pulled. The gate screamed. Metal tore. Bolts shattered. 40 tons of Kethari engineering bent and twisted and finally, with a sound like the end of the world, broke apart. Danny fell to his knees as the gate collapsed around him. Pieces of metal the size of trucks crashed to the ground. Dust and debris filled the air, and through the hole where the impossible gate had stood, the morning light came flooding in. On the other side, the Kethari army stared in stunned silence. Thousands of soldiers, armed and armored, ready for the surrender that was supposed to come. Instead, they saw a single human kneeling in the wreckage of their unbreakable wall. His hands torn and bleeding. His body shaking with exhaustion. His eyes still burning with something that none of them could understand. One of the Cathari officers reached for his communicator. His hands were trembling. His voice came out as barely more than a whisper. "Command, this is forward position 7. The gate. The Earthborn." He broke it. With his hands. "Send reinforcements. Send everything." Danny tried to stand. His legs would not hold him. He fell forward, catching himself on his ruined hands, feeling the gravel bite into the wounds. The world was going gray at the edges. He could hear voices shouting somewhere far away, but he could not make out the words. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was Lisa's face, leaning over him, her eyes wide with something that might have been fear or wonder or both. "What did you do?" she whispered. Danny smiled. It hurt to smile. It hurt to breathe. But he smiled anyway. "I found out what I can do," he said, and then there was only silence. The counterattack began within minutes. Commander Yethal was the first to recover from his shock. His voice cut through the stunned silence like a blade. Ordering every able soldier through the breach, the Cathari forces, still frozen by what they had witnessed, fell back in confusion. By noon, the siege line was broken. By sunset, the enemy had retreated 15 miles, but no one was talking about the battle. Everyone was talking about the gate. Danny lay unconscious in the medical bay for 3 days. The alien doctors did not know what to make of him. His hands were shattered. The bones cracked in dozens of places. The skin torn beyond recognition. The blood vessels in his arms had burst so badly that both limbs were purple from shoulder to fingertip. His heart had nearly stopped twice during the first night, and yet he was healing, faster than he should have been, faster than the doctors thought possible. Lisa stayed by his side through all of it. She slept in a chair next to his bed, ate her meals standing up, and refused to leave no matter how many times. Commander Yethal suggested she get some rest. "Why do you stay?" the commander asked her on the second night. "Because someone needs to explain to him what happened when he wakes up," Lisa said. "And I'm not sure any of us really understand it ourselves." Yethal was silent for a long moment. His mandibles clicked slowly, a sign of deep thought among his people. "I have fought beside humans for many years," he said finally. "I respected your intelligence, your creativity, your ability to see solutions where others saw only problems. But I never thought." He trailed off, unable to find the words. "You never thought we could do that," Lisa finished for him. "No, I did not." The commander turned to look at Danny's unconscious form. "None of us did." The whisper spread faster than anyone expected. Soldiers talked. Messages were sent. Within a day, every Allied force in the system knew what had happened at Fort Edgemont. Within a week, it had reached the homeworlds. The Torvani High Council requested detailed reports. The Velkine Collective sent a team of scientists to study the human soldiers still stationed at the fort. The Norathi simply sent a single message: "We always knew." But the most interesting reaction came from the enemy. Allied intelligence intercepted dozens of Cathari communications in the days following the battle. At first, the reports were dismissed as exaggerations. A single human destroying a siege gate with his bare hands? Impossible. The Cathari commanders assumed their soldiers had panicked, had seen something that was not really there. Then the video footage was recovered from a fallen Cathari drone. The recording showed everything. Danny walking toward the gate. Danny pressing his hands against the metal. Danny screaming as his body pushed past every limit it was supposed to have. Danny tearing the gate apart like it was made of paper. The footage was classified at the highest level of Cathari security. But somehow, it leaked. It spread through their ranks like a disease, passed from soldier to soldier, whispered about in barracks and bunkers across the front lines. The Cathari had a word for it. Roughly translated, it meant Earthborn destruction. Reports started coming in from other battlefields. Cathari units refusing to advance when they saw human soldiers in the enemy lines. Cathari officers requesting reassignment to sectors where humans were not present. Cathari intelligence analysts, scrambling to rewrite everything they thought they knew about the species they had dismissed as harmless. Danny woke on the fourth day. His first sensation was pain. Deep, burning pain that started in his hands and spread through his entire body. His second sensation was confusion. The ceiling above him was unfamiliar. The sounds around him were strange. For a moment, he did not know where he was or how he had gotten there. Then Lisa's face appeared above him. "Hey, farm boy," she said. "Welcome back." Danny tried to speak. His throat was dry and raw. Lisa held a cup of water to his lips, and he drank slowly, feeling the cool liquid ease the burning in his chest. "Did it work?" he asked finally. His voice came out as barely more than a croak. Lisa smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen something that changed everything they believed. "Yeah," she said. "It worked. The siege is broken. The Cathari are retreating across the entire sector. The fort is safe." Danny closed his eyes. Relief washed over him like a wave, mixed with exhaustion so deep that he could barely think. "Good," he whispered. "That's good." He heard footsteps. Heavy footsteps. He opened his eyes to see Commander Yethal standing at the foot of his bed. The massive Torvani looked different somehow. Smaller. Maybe. Less certain. Then Yethal did something that Danny would never forget. He knelt. The Torvani commander, 8 feet tall with centuries of warrior tradition behind him, lowered himself to one knee beside the bed of a human supply runner from Montana. His armored head bowed. His mandibles clicked once, then fell silent. "I have seen many impossible things in my life," Yethal said quietly. "I have seen stars die. I have seen fleets burn. I have seen civilizations rise and fall." He looked up, meeting Danny's eyes. "But I have never seen anything like what you did at that gate. I was wrong about your kind. We were all wrong." Danny did not know what to say. He had never been good with words. Back home, he was the quiet one, the one who worked while others talked. So he said the only thing he could think of: "I just did what needed to be done." Yethal's mandibles clicked again. It took Danny a moment to realize that the sound was laughter. "Yes," the commander said, rising to his feet. "I believe that is exactly the problem. Your kind does not know what you are. You look at yourselves and see only weakness. You do not see what the rest of us see." He paused at the door. "Perhaps that is why you are so dangerous. A weapon that does not know it is loaded is a weapon that cannot be prepared for." He walked out, leaving Danny alone with Lisa and the silence. "What did he mean by that?" Danny asked. Lisa looked at him for a long moment. "I think he meant that you just changed everything," she said. "And none of us know what happens next." 3 weeks passed. The siege of Valthos Prime became history, and history became legend. The Cathari Dominion had requested a ceasefire on the 5th day after the gate fell. Their commanders cited strategic repositioning as the reason, but everyone knew the truth. Their soldiers were afraid. For the first time in a century of conquest, the Cathari war machine had met something it did not understand. Danny's hands healed faster than the doctors predicted. The bones knit back together in ways that surprised even the most experienced alien surgeons. By the end of the 2nd week, he could hold a cup without pain. By the end of the 3rd, he could make a fist, but the scars remained. Thick, white lines that crisscrossed his palms and fingers like a map of everything he had done. He looked at them sometimes, turning his hands over in the light, trying to remember what they had felt like before. Trying to remember what he had felt like before. The ceremony was held on a clear morning. The first truly clear morning since the siege began. The smoke had finally lifted. The sky was blue. The same shade of blue that Danny remembered from home. He stood in the center of a massive courtyard, surrounded by soldiers from every allied species, feeling very small and very tired and very much like he wanted to be somewhere else. Commander Yethal presented him with the Medal of Valor, the highest honor the allied forces could give. Representatives from the Velkeen Collective offered him command of a special reconnaissance unit. The Norathi ambassador spoke of legendary status and eternal gratitude. Everyone wanted to shake his hand, to take his picture, to tell him how brave he was. Danny accepted it all with the same quiet expression he had worn his entire life. He nodded at the right times. He said thank you when he was supposed to. He let them pin medals on his chest and make speeches about his courage. Then he asked to go home. The request caused confusion. Officers exchanged glances. Commanders whispered among themselves. Here was a man who could have anything he wanted. Promotion, wealth, power, fame, and all he wanted was to go back to a farm on a planet that most of the galaxy had never heard of. Are you certain? Yethal asked him in private after the ceremony. You could have any position you wish, any assignment. The entire galaxy knows your name. Danny looked at the commander with tired eyes. I appreciate everything, he said. Really, I do. But I'm not a soldier. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who got lucky once. And I'd like to go home before everyone figures that out. Yethal studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached up to his own face and dragged one claw across his cheek. A thin line of blood appeared. This is a Torvani honor scar, he said. We give them only to those who have done the impossible. Wear it well, Danny Cole. Whether you believe you deserve it or not. The transport ship left Valthos Prime at sunset. Danny sat alone in the observation deck, watching the planet grow smaller in the view screen. The siege walls were still visible from orbit, broken and abandoned, a monument to something that was supposed to last forever. Lisa found him there, just like she always seemed to find him. You know you're making a mistake, she said, sitting down beside him. The Alliance needs people like you, people who can inspire others, people who can show the galaxy what humans are really capable of. I didn't do it to inspire anyone, Danny said. I did it because I was tired. Tired of people telling me what I couldn't do. Tired of watching everyone give up. Tired of being afraid. He paused. And honestly, I'm not sure I could do it again if I tried. That's the thing, though. Lisa reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. I wrote my report on what happened. The official record of the siege, and I spent a long time trying to figure out what to say about you. She handed him the chip. This is the final version. Danny took it, turning it over in his hands. What does it say? Read it when you get home. Lisa stood up and walked toward the door. She stopped at the threshold and looked back. For what it's worth, I don't think you got lucky. I think you found out what you really are. And I think that scares you more than anything the Kethari could have done. The journey home took 12 days. Danny spent most of it sleeping, eating, and staring out the window at the stars. He did not read the data chip. He was not sure he wanted to know what it said. His mother was waiting for him when the transport landed in Montana. She was older than he remembered. Grayer. More worn, but her eyes lit up when she saw him, and she held him tight for a long time without saying anything. They drove back to the farm in silence. The fields looked the same as they always had. The house looked the same. The barn where his father had died looked the same. Everything was exactly as he had left it, as if the last year had never happened. His mother asked him what had happened out there. Danny shrugged, picked up a shovel, and walked out to the field that needed tending. Some questions were better answered with work than words. That night, alone in his old room, he finally opened the data chip and read Lisa's report. Most of it was standard military language, dates and coordinates, and tactical assessments. But at the very end, there was a section marked Recommendation. He read it 3 times to make sure he understood. Recommend immediate reclassification of human species from support role to apex threat. Physical capabilities severely underestimated by current galactic assessments. Further recommend we never tell them what they really are. Some weapons work best when they don't know they're loaded. Danny set the chip down on his nightstand. He looked at his scarred hands in the moonlight. He thought about the gate, and the screaming metal, and the faces of every soldier who had watched him do the impossible. Then he lay down, closed his eyes, and dreamed of nothing at all. Across the galaxy, in barracks and war rooms and refugee camps, the story continued to spread. Veterans of 100 worlds told it to anyone who would listen. They spoke in hushed voices, with something like fear in their eyes. They called it the day an Earthborn broke the unbreakable. They called it the beginning of something new, and in the silence between stars, the Kethari listened, and waited, and wondered what the humans would do next.